was out with a group of friends and we witnessed a deer actually being teleported up into a globe of light. And then later on, when we were all talking about it, only 2 of us remembered it as being a deer and a UFO, and other people remembered it as being a white owl. And then later on, I found out that was, that they can pump trace memories and make you remember stuff that actually didn't happen, so you don't remember what really happened. So.
Well, there's always been the story of spaceships landing on the mountain. I've seen a few, I guess what you call UFOs, lost in shape things that fly around, or little spheres of light that drop down by the mountain. But the lenticular clouds that you see are actually spaceships that are cloaked in cloud, and that visitors land there and come into town like tourists or whatever.
I think it's been about 2 years ago, one of my Facebook friends was hiking up on the mountain and took a really interesting photo. Her kids were in protest and they sat on the road because they didn't want to go any further, and they were hiking up to Panther Meadow. And she took a photo of them because they were acting like little brats. And she went home and saw the photo and noticed something pretty unusual in the corner. It's what looks like a light beam off in the trees, right off the edge of the road. And just one of those things that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. But what's the point of being here if there's not a bigger, mysterious something out there?
We went back there, it was gone. Nothing. No boulders. All of it was gone. I'm talking massive boulders that could never have moved, disappeared. I wanted to go back and see these flowers, these yellow E.T. flowers. I don't know what kind of flowers they were, dude. I've never seen anything like it. It was something far out, man. And we were, like, it changed my life. It changed my life. Shasta opened me up to a whole reality about, wow, things aren't really as they appear. There's way more going on than we know.
I didn't know at the time what it was, but I pick it up and I put it in my hand, and all of a sudden this language just starts like pouring out of me.
Wow.
And song, sound, frequency, just this complete and full language starts coming through me. And ever since then, I've like held this crystal and I've had that language with me. And,
wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
These are small examples of the quality and the consciousness that she brought.
I call myself the Flat Earth Vegan Witch. I woke up to the Flat Earth truth in 2015 and have been questioning the things that I was taught ever since.
So I started working as a psychic snake reader kind of after I started coming to Shasta. Shasta just really changed my life, and it continues to change my life.
At the head of the upper Sacramento River in Northern California lies a mountain just over 14,000 feet high. Although known by many names and tongues now lost to time, it has, since the arrival of European settlers in the 19th century, been known as Shasta. Every year, Shasta is visited by thousands of people from all over the world who come to enjoy the scenic landscapes and recreation. However, some are drawn by forces far more mysterious.
It took me about 10 years to really tap into the power of the mountain. It's just incredible. I mean, just being up there, it simplifies things. You go up there, the energy's up there coming out of the mountain. They kind of straighten things out when you have a question or a problem, and it ends up kind of straightening things out.
If the mountain wants you here, it will provide a way for you to be here. If it doesn't want you here, it will chew your ass up and spit you out and send you packing.
I just feel a sense of great power and strength when I come to Mount Shasta, and it brings me clarity, making decisions, and so there's just so much gifts that it offers, and I think the people are absolutely spectacular here. Just one of a kind. You'll never meet. It's so far out, you know. They're really special, the people here.
My focus at coming to Shasta is always how to rise to our soul's highest potentials.
It's a mystery what this mountain is. Essentially, it's something like a crystal. Maybe geologically, there's actually some kind of geological forms underneath it that are very coherent structures that are resonating in some way we don't yet understand. That's bending the nature of physics around here. Kind of like, because of its shape and its whatever its geology is, something about it is basically creating some kind of a channel up that's allowing for more to pour in down. And so there's more light, you know, the unseen light, coherent living life force coming down here, and because of that, people who come here, or people who are drawn here magically, or people who come and visit here, tend to have these experiences. I've known people who come here and within an hour of arriving here begin violently vomiting and had to leave.
I've heard the mountain referred to as a being that represents various chakras in the body, but sort of in an earth kind of a sense.
I actually started researching about the mountain, and I fell in love with her. And there's some like prophecies and stuff about people that started their earth journey actually coming here and being called back to Mount Shasta during the end times. And a lot of people think the end times means like the world's like gonna end, but it's like the end of the world as we know it, because we've been taught a lot of lies, and the apocalypse just means the unveiling. So all of these truths are coming to light, and it's really going to change the world. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to change the world.
Just look at the mountain. It's just by itself. That mountain pops up out of flatlands on the north and the east. You know, it's not all that dramatic, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this volcano there. And, you know, it's visible for miles around, and it just dominates the landscape in a mysterious and strange way. And when you go up on the mountain, it feels even more strange. You know, you're up high above the world, breathing thin air.
Myriad myths, legends, and eldritch truths have circled the mountain like the lenticular clouds it's so famous for. In the 20th century, Shasta attracted the interest of theosophists, cryptozoologists, fortune hunters, psychedelic drug enthusiasts, mystics, and skeptics alike. One of the most prominent myths depicts the ancient city of Telos, located within the mountain and believed by many to be the home of a strange race known as the Lemurians.
It's remembering Lemuria.
This is an ancient civilization.
Right. This is before it all, and it shows the temples, and it shows it. So basically, there's a temple inside the mountain, and all different kinds of realities that exist on a faster frequency than we do. It's where a part of the Lemurians migrated to on a different frequency level to maintain that consciousness until we could get to a point where we could co-partner with it. I mean, they show up every once in a while, and as in a physical form.
Survivors of that cataclysm came and are posted up in Mount Shasta, many levels down.
Inside the mountain.
From about the same time as the destruction of Atlantis. These tall people in robes with long earlobes would come and trade with settlers and the natives, and trade in gold nuggets and gold powder or whatever.
What were they like?
I can't put an image on them. It's more just that I'm there and I know I'm in there, and I don't really see an image, and I've never really seen any kind of like beings running around. So I can't, they say they're tall and they're skinny and they're, with this and that, but I've also heard they're small, and it's kind of, I think, whatever anyone wants to like turn into,
When they came, all this peace came over me. It was so powerful. The peace is just so great. It's like your home. You couldn't feel any safer, and you couldn't feel any better. And they were just letting me know that it's all okay, that it's all going to be okay, and I'll find my way, I'll find my spark in the world, what I need to be and do in this life. But
as I look up and I see this massive string of light just going up and over like that, and then hovering over the top of that entrance, and she just indicated the entrance to the mountain and put a rainbow over it and went inside of the mountain.
Wow. The process continues.
And the base of the pyramid?
Yeah. Yeah, this is that base, and this has many different names. I refer to it as a trans-dimensional interface, but that's actually a three-dimensional object just represented two-dimensionally. The framework, the 4 rings, is a framework called the vector equilibrium, also known as the cube octahedron. And long story short, it represents the geometrical framework that unfolds into space-time. It's the way that atoms naturally cohere coming out of the subspace planet of infinite potential. I was guided through what was 12 dimensions of reality, and the spaces of those realities, the nature and qualities of those dimensional places, and the transitions between them. There were these intelligences in the room with me. They were very friendly and somewhat playful, and I was told that they were the Hathors, who I was already generally familiar with. They did tell me that they were really happy to be communicating with me now because they've been trying to for a very, very long time in this life, with some success, but that I wasn't really fully open on all psychic levels, and now I was much more open. So they were really thrilled about that they could now transmit a lot more information with me. And so, and they also, at the time too, I was very much into cryptocurrencies, and amidst this extraordinary tour of kind of a trans-symbolic, semiotic representation of psychic semiotic representation of hyperdimensional reality, which was just mind-blowing in those ways. Every now and then they would kind of lean into me and go, by the way, we really like this particular cryptocurrency. And I ended up buying more of that cryptocurrency after that, and it was a good decision.
Encounters with the weird and supernatural, so common around the mountain as to be almost mundane. Talking with both locals and tourists produces the impression that either the world beyond the mountain is populated by spiritual defects, wandering blind through a dead civilization, or that those who come in contact with the mountain are themselves afflicted by madness.
I have dreams of the night sky when the night sky is literally littered with UFOs. So I've had those dreams, with the mountain there as well, where it's not just one ship or light. It's just literally the whole sky's lit up with them, and it's kind of a scary dream.
I went through a phase in the early 90s living here where almost every night I had a dream about it blowing up, which was very scary. Lava everywhere, you know, shit hitting the fan basically. And they did go away, so I don't know if that was a premonition or if it was something I had in my head. But for sure, yeah, I've had like crystal cave dreams too, where I'm like inside the mountain.
Unaware of their surroundings, their clothes seem brand new and creased with starch, like they just pulled them out of a clothing store and put them on right there. Boots brand new and undirtied, and creases in their pants, and just looking at a piece of fruit, like a banana, and saying, "How do you eat this object?" Or "What is this thing called asparagus?" And you know, moving their skin around like it doesn't quite fit right on themselves.
They were all dressed in white, and they all came up on the mountain. Like, I was praying for the light to show, and then they came, and all these people in white robes and outfits, and they said they weren't allowed to be on the mountain unless they were wearing white.
This beautiful pool that's like, it's like the consistency of Jell-O before it turns to Jell-O, so it's like still liquid, and it's just like the most soothing waters I've ever experienced, and I can return back there through my dreams.
In my mind's eye, I could see these golden hands reaching towards me, and I could almost feel a very subtle, like, visceral sensation, as if these hands were actually reaching out to my hands. It was almost like an invitation I was receiving to be shown around.
So what I do is I work with my snake, Ananta, and I essentially channel information from her and I give it to my clients. So in a nutshell, I could explain it to be like a tarot deck reading minus the deck plus a snake.
Naturally, we followed the snake psychic back to a studio where she offered to perform a reading. The snake is named Ananta, known to Hindus as the Serpent of Infinity, upon which Lord Vishnu rests.
I had this feeling, I was probably like 7 years old, and I had a feeling that I could talk to snakes. But when I walked in to meet all of the snakes in the exhibition, I was able to put my hand up on all of the windows of their terrariums, and they each raised their heads to me, with the exception of a couple of pit vipers who were super sassy about it. To get the big lady out while we talk about perception of time, because she's really the expert. Ask me a question relating to the timeline, and I'll tell you what she has to say.
The snake was asked if she could predict the future.
She says that each of us are the guiding force, and that we're also a collective guiding force. So all of that happens from within.
We asked the snake, were the legends of Shasta true?
She says she says yes and no. Yep, that wraps it up. Choking me, but it's just tight. You're making me red because you gotta loosen up, bro. We started seeing clients for psychic snake readings after she walked me through my own huge healing process over the course of several years. Like every time I have a new client,
or that I just see a client, it blows me away that somebody believes in what I'm doing and values what I'm doing enough to pay me. And that within itself is really inspiring to me. I think that we have a lot to learn from these creatures. They have a lot to say. I think that they even instructed me to go and talk to you at the top of the mountain that day.
From Zion to Fuji, Ethos to Mauna Loa, mountains have occupied a place in the sacred and mythic among many races of man. The gods reigned from Olympus, and Sumeru was the axis on which the cosmos turned. Rather than an aberration, the arcana of the mountain is a tradition without a beginning. What may seem strange to a modern man living under the zeitgeist of materialism, rationalism, and atheism would actually be all too familiar to the ancients, who saw the mountain as greater than human power.
We're like the same species as we were back in the days of painting on cave walls, basically. Those old religions developed, the archetypal forms developed to give us understanding of the world, right? So where do we fit into it? What are we? And what do we compare ourselves to? Well, animals, we have notions of spirits, especially if these people are imbibing some form of soma, like a mushroom or ayahuasca, Jimson weed, or whatever it is. You have shaman types who might do that naturally, right? Medicine man, whatever you call them. So these are old forms that still persist in us today.
People, as the saying goes, people say a lot of things about things, but
People that hike up here, you know what they say? They come down and they just are crying and say, I'm healed. I'm healed. This lady just came down I'm healed. She's like just insanely ecstatic, and just, so people come up here to get healings, and
people want myths and like motifs to make sense of it, Like, how are they going to process all this information? So instead of being like a tortured agnostic skeptic, having to think about everything that comes across your desk, it's a lot easier to just have a notion that explains everything. Maybe it doesn't work for people anymore to just believe in Jesus, so they want something else, like, Saint Germain coming out of a mountain. That's pretty cool. Suddenly you feel special all of a sudden, like I'm part of something different. I saw them going around the house putting little jelly beans and Easter egg things around and about, and I realized, we're going to wake up in the morning and they're going to say that the Easter Bunny did that, and sure enough, they did, and I just knew it was all a lie. I couldn't really last much longer in all the other beliefs after that.
Tooth Fairy too for me.
Yeah, and eventually it was Jesus and God, and everything else fell apart.
In my opinion, this mountain is the most important place. If you think about a tree and the root of the tree, if the root is unhealthy, then the whole tree is going to be unhealthy, right? And as we can see from our earth tree, it is unhealthy.
We are definitely missing a more coherent narrative of who we are, what we are, and where we're going. Understanding who we actually are as not just an earthling, but as a cosmological being and as a spiritual, transcendental being. You need to know how to navigate that and how to navigate and clear the own balance of darkness and light in yourself in order to participate on bringing all that we're so interested in into balance and creating the new world here on Earth. It's just like a sickness. There's a more fundamental thing going on, and those, the environmental and sociological issues will just continue to keep reemerging until we treat this much deeper issue.
Has the crisis of the modern world driven some of us to look again at these mysteries? Are we rediscovering forgotten truths or engineering new fictions? It may be that in the ancient world man was closer to the gods who wouldn't dare show themselves to a modern man in his arrogance and degeneracy. Or perhaps it's a fact of human nature that the mind cannot cope with mortality and fabricates elaborate fables to keep sane while staring into the abyss.
I'm walking my puppy through the woods, through the bushes, and what do I find? I find a cow that's had its legs ripped off of it, totally intact with the skin, and the body completely eaten. That's exactly what I found. With all these remains of red t-shirts. They hate red. Don't ever wear red. They'll attack you over it. I found caves filled with human remains skeletons of red t-shirts, and all their arms and legs were ripped off. And they were intact, but they don't eat the arms and legs. They only eat the body. And those are the cannibal ones, but nobody wants to ever talk about that. So this Bigfoot just literally, at 6 a.m. in the morning, goes from the tree and just literally jumps down, slams down on my 12-person REI tent, Kingdom 8, and just slams down. And we literally, I was almost going to have a heart attack. I'm up with a machete and knives, and we're all up sitting there waiting for this thing to kill us, But it was so powerful. They could jump really high distances. I had Bigfoot show up everywhere I went, and wherever I would go, wherever Bigfoot was showing up everywhere. And I just said, well, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to run every time. I've got to come make some peace with these people. But I would like to meet the ET ones, the one with the glowing eyes, and the ones that have that much power, that are definitely interesting beings.
People who seem like they're a little bit out of it or wing nuts are actually tourists from off planet. I've seen lights all over up there for the last 20 years.
Colored lights that are floating and then appear to go inside the mountain, actually disappear in the mountain. To me, it's kind of undeniable because I lived here so long, but then just the fact that so many people come from all around the world and have these revelations here. So yeah, I definitely think Mount Shasta has special powers. I mean, it's to tap into it.
The native culture, they've been here thousands of years. And there's various cultures that have lived here or still live here. They're not all the same group, but they've shared enough of this cultural presence here to kind of all believe in some of the same things. Like Bigfoot, by its various names, whether it's an animal or a spirit or whatever. So it might look like a Sasquatch, but it might not. It might be a mountain lion or a bear or a tree or a rock. It's more the spirit of the mountains that this thing represents. Those giant salamanders that live in the lakes up here, there have actually been cryptozoological expeditions trying to find these things, but they're said to be about 6 feet long or bigger, and they'll eat little kids who go swimming in the lakes if you're not careful.
In the town of Mount Shasta, there are in fact more crystal shops than restaurants. Beverly is a former structural engineer who opened a successful crystal shop which stands out due to its impressive collection, with some items selling for thousands of American dollars. Beverly attributes a form of consciousness to the rocks and is highly selective about which she will add to her inventory, often passing on potentially lucrative specimens that don't metaphysically belong in her shop.
People have offered.
Excuse me.
That's fine.
The physical world's my least dominant. It's really true. And you'd think I'd learn, but it's the now. There's nothing here that hasn't doused highest use, highest good for the consciousness itself, the person it's going to work with, and the field. That's what you feel. If it doesn't say yes, it just means this isn't where it's going to get where it wants to be. You know, and we don't want it there because we want it to be where it wants to be. You know, so even if it's gorgeous and I think it's absolutely exquisite, I bless it on its way because it's going where it's on its walkabout, getting where it's going to be working. This is my no, this is my yes. I can, when I'm picking out what's supposed to be here, you know, I'm basically just touching it and I either get a yes or a no. And if it says yes, we get it. If it says no, we don't. I'm not doing that. I'm just holding it loose enough where it can do it. When I think no, it goes out. With crystals, I'm literally saying, I'm asking it, you know, if it's for here or not for here. And you can go through a lot of crystals that way and not have to really use, otherwise, I mean, it'd take forever trying to figure out, is it supposed to be here or, you know, it isn't about getting it. It's about serving it. I mean, we're here to hold the field. We're not here to make something happen.
The mountain has also seen attempts at the revival of dead gods and ancient fertility cults. Here we found a young woman who introduced herself as the avatar of Inanna, a Mesopotamian goddess whose cult dates back to as early as 4000 BC. Later known by the name Ishtar, Inanna was an archetypal feminine deity whose rites included sex magic and prostitution.
I came to find this group of, I guess mystics is a nice word, but magicians called the Essenes, and they lined up with what I believed, and they were talking about Jesus essentially being a witch, and I was like, yes. So that was game on. I wanted to use what other people are using for bad to do good things, like heal people with energy and manifest a better world than what they're doing, because they're using fire to fight us, so we shouldn't be docile little sheep just thinking that witchcraft is bad. We should understand that witchcraft is a tool, and it can be used for good or bad, so I like to fight fire with fire. Inanna. She is from ancient Sumeria, and one of the first known authors is actually named Enheduanna, which is her high priestess, so there's a lot of poems about her, and she is the goddess of love and war. It's like two opposite opposing things, but if you understand like the idea of a protective mama bear, that like if you come into her den and start messing with her kids, she's going to eat you alive. So like not just this love side, you know, there's a very fierce protective side of Inanna. So, and there's prophecies about her return and her manifesting a brighter tomorrow, a golden age for us. So.
Have you ever known anyone to channel Inanna?
Besides myself, no.
But you have, personally?
Yes. I started to connect with the goddess, well, actually before I came here, and like a little bit before I came here, and then I started using the name Inanna, and yeah, so that's actually my name now. This is actually a piece of tektite. It is from the heavens, and I call it Inanna. And I use it as my connection to her, basically. Like sometimes Christians have crucifixes and whatever like that, but I've kind of asked her to manifest into this rock because rocks can hold energies and crystals and stuff.
It's good to recognize that there's something like what we might call a war of forces on this planet, or a battle of forces on this planet. Well, really, I think it's just there's what we might say is there's a great balancing of forces on this planet. What we might call heaven on earth is already here, and it's really just a matter of shifting our perspective to allow it to be seen and realized. Because the light is so strong, the dark forces also are rushing in to keep that balance, or try to flip the balance in the opposite way. So I was very surprised when I first arrived here. I was expecting, oh, this is all going to be just rainbows and unicorns now. And I was really surprised right away to begin receiving a lot of direct experience and lessons around interacting with really potent dark unseen forces.
Unfortunately, people on both sides of magic, essentially people that use it for darkness and light, know this. So they gather around here and they fill this area, unfortunately, with a lot of people that are doing bad things so that they can corrupt the root. They want to corrupt the tree, right? So sacrificing children, for one. Just bringing in bad energy. So let's say if they would put a slaughterhouse here and torture a bunch of animals, that would bring in negative energy. One of the things about Shasta is they try to say, like, love and accept everyone. And I am personally against that to an extent. So that's one of the reasons that I'm also an outcast. It's because there's a lot of evil people that are attracted when you create that kind of community. Like, we love and accept everyone. So it's like, let's say you're a pedophile and you want to be accepted, you're going to go there because they're not asking any questions, and you can just go about your life receiving all sorts of love from everybody. Meanwhile, you're doing these horrible things, behind closed doors. And unfortunately, I feel that is what has been pushed into this area.
I think that the concept of the devil teaches us a lot about how to have a expanded ability to love even the things that don't seem great to us. Just like snakes.
What brought you to the mountains
tonight? Well, tonight is a really special night because it's, astrologically speaking, we have the full moon in Taurus tonight, which is really significant in many different contexts. For one, just basically anytime you have a full moon in Taurus, that's significant because in astrology it's considered exalted. It's just like the moon really likes to be in Taurus. And it just so happens that apparently the Buddha, Gautama Buddha, was born under a Taurus full moon, and he became fully enlightened under a Taurus full moon, and he also died under a Taurus full moon. So it's just a very auspicious full moon. Any full moon I'd be up here, but especially this full moon is just a really powerful full moon, especially in context of everything else we're going through astrologically. I don't know if it's really appropriate to go into the specific astrology because by the time this film comes out, it won't really be that relevant anymore, but it's super potent full moon. I know that the Native Americans used to say about Mount Shasta is that they would never recommend to go up above the tree line, and especially never to sleep above the tree line, because the powers and energies up this high were generally too powerful for people to integrate.
As with the great religious wars of the past, this New Age movement has its own internal struggles, often arising from competing interpretations of the mountain's will. Here, Inanna had assembled a rock circle for later use in ritual magic, while another woman, who wished to remain anonymous, had scattered the rocks hours before, hoping to prevent the evening's ritual from taking place. At this point we could film no further, and were asked not to report on what we witnessed. How would all these people, whose only seeming commonality was their belief in Shasta's power, come to be in this place?
I've heard a lot of people's stories of how they ended up in Mount Shasta, and very rarely is it some kind of smooth sailing, just gentle, ease-filled landing. I think I have heard one or a couple of those, but generally not so many of those. More like a crash landing and some kind of meaning behind that. Always meaning-filled. I can say that.
I got called. I was in Virginia Beach, and I actually got called to drive here and come here. So yes, I mean, I consider that. I woke up feeling like I had to come to Mount Shasta. And that's the story I hear repeatedly over and over from people.
Made some decisions to come here and serve in certain ways, and after that, I come back into my body, and it pulled me. Then my feet start leading me further up the mountain. And as this is happening, all of a sudden, out of me, it just starts anahata, 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 which is heart. And I'm just experiencing this massive heart opening, and it brings me up to this other little kind of space in this shrine. And I looked down, and this crystal was laying there, and it was split on the spot. There was two pieces. I've since then left the other piece in Kauai, which is the energetic counter to where we are now.
I'm driving along, looking at the mountain, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was like a beam of light transcended into my head, descended, into me, and I felt this unique experience of like expanded presence in my being, like expanded awareness and clarity. I felt very clear, and my body felt very alive and expanded, and I felt more of myself than I normally do. I just felt really who I am in a profound way. And then this kind of like wave of energy came down from this side, and with it there was a voice. It was like I could hear an audio, and that voice said, "Now is the time to move to Shasta."
Not far from Mount Shasta, in a cramped bookstore on the outskirts of a small town known for its Bigfoot lore, we found one of North America's foremost experts on Sasquatch. Stephen had spent years involved in theosophy, Bigfoot research, and the occult. A kind of myth buster, Stephen has debunked various phony claims over the years, and the bullet holes in his front door were testament to the fervour with which many in the Bigfoot community defended their fantastic claims.
It's a relief in the middle of nowhere, and it's also a free place where, someone can really go and explore themselves. I do think that there is some merit to that, the self-help psychology movement and spiritual development. It's supposed to be about self-awareness and improving yourself. So what's wrong with that? But, a lot of those things, they turn into cults. So like I've been studying this stuff since I was a teenager, in high school and right after I was in theosophy group. And then I went to Mount Shasta and started studying the alien culture, the belief in aliens. And somehow I ended up in Humboldt and realized this Bigfoot thing was going on. So now it's Bigfoot. And the whole time I was doing that, I kind of started studying conspiracy theories too. And you start realizing this is all related, The belief systems feed each other. Bigfoot is connected to conspiracy theories because, the government obviously knows that they're real, right? And is covering it up. And Bigfoot is, like, known, and all the evidence for it is, like, hidden away in some secret Indiana Jones warehouse in the Smithsonian, right? for a while there, I was still trying to overcome the cult background that I had emerged from. Found myself in a new one, right? Theoretical physicists, they're talking about some pretty weird stuff. It's a lot more bizarre than what you get at the New Age conferences, in fact. We know there's unknown animals in the world, and any thinking person is going to realize that there got to be aliens out there in the cosmos somewhere, probably light years away, but not in your bedroom at night. But if these things aren't real, it's still a fascinating study in psychology, right? Or sociology, how the belief groups function and form. And I still can't just believe what people say is real. I have to find out through processes of analysis and skepticism what is real and what isn't. My friends and I saw a UFO-like thing flying south of Mount Shasta. We were on the top of Castle Crags, and we weren't stoned or drunk or anything, and we were all sitting there resting on the summit and looking across over at Mount Shasta to the north, and lo and behold, there's this thing comes from the east, and it was just a round ball flying through the air, and it was physical. You could see the late afternoon sun cast a shadow on it. It was spherical. It was close enough to see that it had no obvious means of propulsion. It was moving faster than a balloon in the wind would. And it wasn't a balloon. So we really seriously don't know what that was. But it did turn. It went past the mountain, and then it sort of turned and went north farther. But that doesn't mean anything really, except that we saw something weird. I don't know if it was a alien craft or a secret government project. It was just a weird thing, I like the fact that it's mysterious and strange. Like, sure, it's good to have an explanation for things, but you don't always necessarily want what the thing is explained as being. It's almost cooler to have mysterious things. The world's full of surprises, regardless of whether they're the ones we seek, right?
And I would watch the person. They wouldn't be they're not thinking about anything. They're just reaching for the bag. and then eating crickets out of the bag. A group of crickets is called an orchestra. Yeah. Yep. Which I think makes a cricket farmer the conductor, maybe. I don't know, but that's my guess. Yeah. They're always just hitting that one note, though,
Yeah, it's not bad, man. I mean, it's something. I like the flavor.
Yeah, it's a good flavor, definitely. Yeah, crunchy, spicy. Tangy.
Reminds me of, really honestly, kind of like pistachio.
That's Chipotle. Is the lives of 1,500 crickets a greater or lesser value than the life of one pig or one cow? Or, I mean, I don't know exactly how to weigh out that ethical thing, right. But it does seem gentler to me. What is the deal with Mount Shasta and all of these people that are here that kind of got there's some common denominator? What is that?